good.
45 seconds to transmission.
Stand by ACR 6, VT1, EJ1, VT2,
40
VT3,
seconds.
and EJ2. And cameras 1 and 3.
35 seconds. 30 seconds to transmission.
VT1.
25
all right,
seconds.
VT1.
Yeah.
Good.
20 to transmission.
I know, but I meant about all the other things.
Oh.
On air in 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
ACL 6
1,
roll.
0. On air.
News at 10 tries to give a big audience at the end of the day the news of the day, and not, I think, just the news that may end up in the history books, but the sort of news about the royal family or show business or sport that people will be talking about on the building site or in the canteen the next morning.
Right, okay, fans, we'll get the show on the road. Firstly, the fish war.
Throughout each day, and sometimes the previous night too, hundreds of ITN staff have themselves been talking and working to gather, compress and package the stories that make up News at 10.
Hawaii does, as it does stick out a bit there. Oh, I was not going to run it, it's just that it sticks out a bit amongst all those political stories out there, doesn't it?
This is the 7 o'clock production meeting, the last of several detailed discussions and briefings throughout the day.
New Jersey, we said the explosion could be heard 70 miles away. And that's like an explosion in Birmingham being heard in London. Right. I mean, unless we've got other proof of that, I think we can excise that.
Yes, okay, yeah.
The producer decides how best to use the wide range of material available.
Correspondent being chucked out of Poland. We've got a bit of picture of him arriving home. So you can put both of those into the lead in Sandy, and then get into the Tim Hewitt package on how the media are still having a tough time, even though ostensibly martial law.
Before you can plan how to put the news together, you first have to get it. A job requiring fast reactions and considerable organisation.
Yes, but we can't fly from Lerwick at the moment. We've got the helicopter standing by at Kirkwall, so we'll have to go from there. And basically what I need is your coordinates so we can get the chopper over you as soon as possible.
Most news is, by definition, unpredictable. The rest, like a royal tour, for example, requires planning just as meticulously.
How many satellites do you think we'll be taking out of Australia?
Well, it's going to have to be one from every one of the states of the Commonwealth.
Well, I thought there would be about 16, probably 8 from Australia and 8 from New Zealand. That's what I've allowed for. And then, of course, we can amend it when we have the itinerary.
ITN base to Malcolm Hicks, Bernie Glancy.
Cameramen, sound recordists and electricians have to be assigned, usually at very short notice.
ITN base to Mike Garner.
ITN base to Mike Garner.
Mike Garner to ITN base, go ahead.
Hello, Mike. Presumably you finished the thing at Harrods. Can you tell me where you are now?
Yeah, we're on our way back. We're at Brook Street, just hold up in some traffic.
Can I divert you, Mike, to go to Marlborough Street Magistrates Court? That's Marlborough Street West 1.
June Forecastle is there and she'll fill you in on the details. But it's an animal lip court case there.
The business of gathering pictures worldwide for News at 10 falls to camera teams, some our own, others in the ITV regional companies throughout Britain, and still more working for UPITN, the International News Film Agency. In most cases, film has now been replaced by ENG, electronic news gathering, in which the pictures and sound captured by the electronic camera are recorded direct onto videotape. Ready for instant replay once they have been labelled and rushed back to ITN or the nearest studio. ENG means that a reporter could be editing a piece to camera, as we call it, like this, 1 minute, and the next minute, assuming he's not too far from base, be back in the editing room helping to edit that story together. If they're a long way from base, the camera team will call on the services of ITN's MCR, Master Control Room. Here, engineers receive and monitor for technical quality stories from all over Britain. From ITV studios and from an increasing number of remote plug-in points across the country, many of the pictures that help make up the raw material for News at 10 flow in, down what are in effect specially adapted telephone lines.
All right, a bit more chroma. Probably do with a touch more luminance as well.
And not just from Britain, but from all over the world too. Here a story is coming in from the Middle East, from a crew working for ABC, the American broadcasting company. ABC and ITN have formed a highly successful working partnership and regularly exchange news material. Another major source of news pictures from which News at 10 can select is Eurovision, a system that enables almost all major broadcasters in Europe and beyond to have access to each other's most important news pictures. At least 3 times a day, every day of the year, in a special telephone link-up, ITN's foreign desk monitors what's on offer or not.
Draper item is now cancelled as the material won't be ready in time. It wasn't on the flight.
Okay, fine.
Still more choice of material comes from a direct sound link with the House of Commons. ITN records all major parliamentary speeches and debates.
The Soviet Union has been offered a zero option, no intermediate range nuclear missiles.
And in ITN's newsroom, journalists can check and monitor every single picture and sound source entering the building themselves. Special earpieces enable them to listen in without disturbing colleagues involved in other projects, all part of the business of staying fully informed. And when all the material has been gathered in, the pictures and sections of interviews chosen, the stories for News at 10 are pieced together in a dozen editing suites. There's no question of physically cutting the videotape to do this. The pictures for each package are electronically joined together by transferring them from one or more tapes to another in the order and to the precise length required by the editorial team. These machines can search for a particular picture at up to 30 times the normal speed and can freeze a single frame for as long as required. There are still more sources which the journalists assembling News at 10 can draw upon. They can delve with the help of experienced researchers into the labyrinth of ITN's videotape and film library. Here, more than 25 years of world history are carefully archived on microfiche and, more recently, on computer, and painstakingly cross-referenced. They can choose from thousands of colour slides and black and white agency photographs covering an enormous range of subjects. They may want to commission from the graphics department special maps or artwork. The graphics designers also work closely with ITN's specially developed computer, VT80. This has the ability to create animated captions, moving graphs, maps, and other visual effects. Used initially for general election and budget programs, it now contributes almost daily to News at 10. Another source is Aston, a machine in a separate department which is pre-programmed with other daily captions and the names of interviewees and reporters, which are then summoned up on given cues during News at 10. Background research is an important part of most stories. Here in News Information, writers can find cuttings, reference books and files on virtually every subject they are likely to come across. Back in the corner of the newsroom, teleprinters chatter with a constant flow of news from Britain and around the world. The copy taster, as he's called, is responsible for initially sorting it all out and passing it on to where it's needed. Now, with all the decisions, pictures and research at their fingertips, the writers, who include the newscasters, can start typing their scripts for News at 10.
Look, I've altered that one because we've got to get straight into it very quickly. But on this one...
The scripts then have to pass under the critical eyes of the chief sub and the producer, where they can be amended or shortened as necessary. Of the 20 or so carefully timed stories that end up on the News at 10 list, some of the most difficult are the opening sentences that compete with the chimes of Big Ben. We call them the bongs.
Well, I think it's rather like having to write a headline in a newspaper. You're under discipline. You're not allowed just to go tediously on as many broadcasters do. You've got to get it into 9 words, 3 seconds. And that does impose a discipline. And I think in the end, it makes them punchier and better and more memorable.
The scripts are typed as they're completed during the 2.5 hours before News at 10 goes on the air. For the reporters, the last stage of editing is taking place in sound dubbing, where their commentaries are being added.
But the press were also responsible for the confusion, and the media should put its own house in order.
Down in makeup, they're putting the newscasters in order, protecting us from the ravages of the studio lights and high-definition colour cameras. The director and her team put the finishing touches to the complex technical plan for getting News at 10 on the air. Videotape reports for the bulletin are loaded into an ACR machine, a sort of electronic carousel that punches out the pictures on command and identifies them to make sure you got the right one at the right time. The studio is ready. We all get 15 minutes rehearsal, if we're lucky.
Okay, do you want to... Now, this might look as though he's giving me a double arm lock, or trying to, but in fact what he's doing is connecting the wire that in turn connects to an earpiece that goes in this case, my right ear, which you, the viewer, won't see at home, but which helps the newscasters to stay in constant touch with the director throughout the program. In fact, we hear, while we're reading the news, we hear constantly what is going on in the control room, and we can have instructions relayed to us by the director and the producer about cutting stories and a whole variety of other things that might happen, crises that might come upon us during the course of the program.
Every story is duplicated on a rolling hand-operated teleprompter. A TV picture of the words is transmitted to a monitor slung beneath the lens and reflected in a two-way mirror.
Mr. Eddie Newell said the effects of a lengthy stoppage would be very serious.
Instead of the lens, the newscaster sees just the reflection of the words. It can all break down, of course, but that's not the least of the problems facing the News at 10 team now.
Do you ever quiver on the edge of your chair just before News at 10 starts and say, how on earth are we going to get on the air tonight?
I think we all do that most of the time. But some of the times, you quiver a little bit more than others. I mean, for example, the day that President Reagan was shot, we went on the air knowing that the report and the first picture was coming from Washington, but we didn't know we had it. And indeed, we had to stooge around for about a minute while it actually came in.
ACR 6 row.
The start of News at 10 is the most complicated queuing sequence in the business. Coordinating pictures from 7 separate sources over the space of some 25 seconds.
Danish skipper fined £30,000 for illegal fishing. The water workers move nearer a national strike. On Broadway, the lights are going out. In Poland, solidarity is still being censored. And the latest thing in bikes bounces into London.
Take 1 and Q, Sandy.
Good evening.
And over the next half hour, the reports follow fast and furious. And so, more often than not, do the cuts. While the viewer sees this, the newscasters hear something like this.
Story 13, Sandy. Third paragraph. After the words, Dunlop will supply the technology and they'll be paid back in tyres. Cut. The deal is worth £10 million in orders to British companies. That is out, that sentence. Right now, Martin, I've got some word changes for you on story 12. You can dig it out.
Checking and updating scripts and trimming some to make sure the programme doesn't overrun its allotted time is as much a part and parcel of every News at 10 as the touch of humour at the very end.
Jargon of wheelies, bunny hops, rollbacks and kickturns is clearly here to stay. Ian Edwards, ITN Sport at the Pickett's Lock Centre.
Take 1 Q, Sandy.
Perhaps our cricketers could use some of those. That's it tonight. Good night.
Many people ask us what we say to each other at the end of News at 10. We'd like to tell you, we hope you'll forgive us if we don't.